Howdy, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be talking a little bit about the part of resiliency that is kind of silicon, information, and also transistors. Today we are going to be talking about how resiliency can be furthered, especially through artificial intelligence, machine learning, as well as resilient infrastructure such as battery backup systems and solar energy. I would like to start off by introducing Dr. Geeta Menon. Dr. Geeta Menon has held leadership roles at companies like SAP, Dell, and Accenture, building enterprise software. She now serves as faculty for sustainability at the Jindal School of Management at the University of Texas at Dallas, integrating ESG and emerging technologies into business education at the University of Texas at Dallas. She is also the founder of One Earth, One Chance, an environmental nonprofit that has expanded urban forests with 7,500 native trees and plants and hosted over 150 educational workshops and cleanups. We will also introduce our other presenter and speaker for this panel, which is also Fazil Sheikh, who is with Generac. Fazil is the Senior Director of Strategy and Growth at Generac Industrial Energy. His work focuses on advancing microgrids, distributed energy resources, especially DERs, resiliency solutions, and data center offerings. Over the last 15 years, Fazil has held leadership positions in retail and wholesale power and gas, demand response, backup power, distribution generation, and microgrids. And his career includes impactful tenures at Dominion Energy, NRG Energy, and as a founder at Palm Energy. Fazil, welcome to the stage as well. We are doing this in a kind of rapid 3 presentations on the same topic. We are starting out with Dr. Menon to talk a little bit about the machine learning aspect here. We'll then transition into solar and battery backup systems. Dr. Menon, take it away.
Well, good afternoon, and I know I've come right after your lunch, so hopefully, our wonderful presentations won't drive you to take a quick nap. But first and foremost, I do want to correct one aspect. I am not a doctor. I'm a professor. Thank you. I'm a professor. I'm a veteran of corporate America that took early retirement and is now focused on the nonprofit One Earth, One Chance, where we're very proud of our tree plantings and education workshops, as Ian mentioned, but also a part-time career at UT Dallas, where I teach AI and sustainability. I know those two words don't often go together, but I try to present a balanced picture. So. Well, let me start off with just some quick definitions. What is AI? I hope most of us know what that is because it's very much a part of our lives now. But it's a technology that, unlike the technology of past where you had to code the if, then, else statements and tell the code what needed to be done, tell the machine what needed to be done, this technology actually learns from the data and adapts. And so it doesn't require those explicit instructions. So it is a renaissance for us in terms of data availability, and computing power, and this technology available to us that simulates human intelligence. So what's the link to sustainability? Well, the reality is many of us, our human brains can't compute as much data as AI can, and it can't reach the far reaches of oceans and the atmosphere and soil depths geologically that satellite imagery and AI can. So it is also the best tool available to humans to solve some of the problems with sustainability. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the examples of where sustainability is benefited from AI, and then we'll also talk about some of the challenges, because we know that all of this computing power doesn't come free. There is a cost in terms of energy, in terms of water, and also not to forget e-waste, because all these computers have relatively short lifespans and end up in the waste section. So what are the two kind of the paradox here? There's green by AI, where we're using AI to improve green. And there's green in AI, which is, we hope, data centers and technology providers will move to more of a green platform so that we can use the power and not have such a heavy carbon footprint. So some of the examples that you can see on here, as far as energy grids, remember now all of us can become energy producers with our cars and with our solar panels. Like almost any home, any individual can be an energy producer. And I think I heard someone mention the distributed energy production. So there's a change happening there, but how do you optimize all of that, the supply and demand? And guess what? Renewable energy isn't always predictable. It fluctuates. Wind, solar does fluctuate. So AI helps optimize and balance the supply and demand, and provide sort of a balance, right, where you don't have what they call load shedding, where you have an outage because you don't have a balance between supply and demand. So smart mobility, we'll talk about that a bit more, but you might have heard of green waves, where you don't have to stop at traffic lights, especially if you're a huge delivery truck. You don't want to have to keep stopping at traffic lights. Can you have a green wave where traffic just keeps moving smoothly because it can predict what's happening with the congestion, with the weather, and all kinds of different factors. Agriculture, whether it's your backyard or large farms, to be able to precisely define where moisture is needed, where chemicals are needed, so you're minimizing all those inputs, would be a great thing. And it's happening. As far as weather, climate change, predicting floods, fires, all these different benefits. And then on the other side, green and AI, people are looking at small models, right? More efficient models. They're looking at optimizing hardware, new silicon chips, data centers with cooling and energy, and just overall reducing the scale where you have enough and you're not fine-tuning the heck out of an algorithm so that to get the ultimate benefits, but it's good enough, right? So that's what some of the opportunities are for us. So I mentioned some of this, the energy efficiency with predicting wind power, but also in buildings, and I heard someone mention that as well, green buildings, to be able to understand the occupancy in the building and how much energy is needed, can actually yield up to 40% energy reduction. So smart buildings, green buildings can be powered by AI. I mentioned the green wave to you, but also our endless need for buying online and all those delivery trucks on the road. Not all of them are electric. Well, how do you optimize routes and reduce fuel consumption and stop what they call deadheading, where you're going around with empty trucks, right? The trucks always have to be full and optimized. So AI helps with that. And lastly, green finance. So we want people to invest, right? Give us loans for green investments. But understanding, are they creditworthy? Is the receiver creditworthy? Avoiding fraud, even automating basic order to invoice cycles are all possible with green finance, with AI. And that's what we want to leverage. And these are just a few examples. We talked about agriculture. We talked about predicting all this unpredictable things that are happening around us. I think on Saturday we actually had a presentation by Catherine Hayhoe. She was our keynote speaker at the climate conference at UTD. And she mentioned the word global weirding. So I said, can I have permission to use that in the future? Because it is global. It's not global warming. It's global weirding because it's weird weather. It could be very cold, very warm. It's just unpredictable. So, managing all of that climate change with satellite imagery, with sensors, is a useful thing with the help of AI. And last but not least, until manufacturers figure out what extended producer responsibility is, until they take a responsibility of what happens to their products even after, at the end of life, we have to figure out how to manage all of the waste. And only 9% of plastic is recycled. So that gives you an idea of how much waste cycling is happening. We put it out there, but does it actually end up being recycled? And is there a secondary market for that kind of product? So training robots, using AI to identify products, sort them, get them to the different types of material, from plastic to glass and different types of plastic. All of that intelligence can be handled better with AI. So let's talk about data centers. There has been a huge workload growth, 800% increase in workload growth, and storage growth has also grown by 8x over a decade. But energy demand growth has not been as much, and that's because of improvements in efficiencies by data centers. And so it's kept it somewhat stable. And the reality is, we talk about freshwater use. The fact is, leaky pipes in homes cost us more water than data centers. And even something like email uses more energy than AI searches or AI use, right? So some of those statistics we have to dig in deeper to understand, are they myths or actual facts? But the fact is, there is a need, there is growth, and we have to be able to get more green around our data center strategy. So some of the things that data centers are doing is they're using a technology called carbon capture, and they're situating it with their data center. So even though there's a data center energy spike, they're using these carbon absorbents to reduce, the overall footprint. And you can actually go read the article by Axios in April, a very recent article about how data centers are doing that. The other technology that's been happening is, instead of having those massive fans that cool down the servers, because there's a need to cool down these huge servers, they are the data centers are investing in cooling, in liquid cooling, and not that liquid cooling is better because it is using fresh water, but they're also offsetting. They're trying to offset with local, by restoring or replenishing local watersheds. And one example is a company called DataBank, situated right here in Dallas. If you ever get a chance, do a tour of the facility, you'll see that in action, where they're actually fully green. And, you should take a look at what they're doing there. The other, silicon, the actual, the throughput of the chips themselves are getting better as far as the energy efficiency, the models being able to handle a lot of parameters with less. But what's the sort of silver lining in all of this? Our hope is that eventually 4 to 10% of the emissions will be cut down because of the use of AI. And that's our hope. And that's a pretty big change. 10% is a big change. So that's the projection that we will get there with the use of AI. So let's just talk quickly about some of the tools out there. And I'd just like to understand, maybe, I don't know if this can be a little bit interactive, but which of these tools do you think is the most green? Any guesses? That's a good choice, but it actually happens to be a Chinese technology called DeepSeek. That's the most green, in terms of all of the aspects that I just mentioned. They are actually doing the most to make it green, and almost 90% energy reduction and many other benefits come from that. So this is just, informational as far as, if you're evaluating and you want to pick a technology that is more green, that's something to look at. Okay. Yeah, so, I think I had 20 minutes for mine. I don't know if I'm on schedule or behind schedule, but I just want to leave you with one thought, which is the reality is the scale of climate change is so big that not one organization or one individual can solve this. And we have a tool at hand that can help us solve these problems at scale. There are negatives that we have to work on, and there are paths to fix those things, whether it's algorithmic efficiency or data center operational improvements. We have to go after that. And renewable energy, I forgot to mention that. Guess what? If you're using renewable energy, then you're much more efficient and have a much smaller carbon footprint. So let's figure out those solutions instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, and one PSA plug for One Earth, One Chance. We're always looking for volunteers for Train the Trainer, for our greening, cleaning activities. So if you have time, please come help us. We always need people that care about sustainability to join us.
Thank you, Professor. Next, I'm going to essentially be an introduction for Fazil, talking about solar panels and batteries on rooftops and in homes and on critical infrastructure from the environmental nonprofit lens before we get to the Generac end of things. So to start off with, my name is Ian Siemens. I think that they're taking a second to get the presentation up, but my name is Ian Siemens. I'm the Dallas City Hall advocate for Environment Texas. We are a nonprofit working for clean air, clean water, wildlife, and open spaces across the state of Texas. And we will also, it's the other presentation, but thank you. We are going to be talking a little bit today about solar and batteries, particularly because of a rulemaking process at the PUC, which is something I don't get to say very often, that there is something going on at the PUC that I will be talking to a large group of people about. The PUC is the Public Utility Commission in the state of Texas. They have a $1.5 billion program established by the Texas legislature beginning in 2023 that will hopefully be getting some funds towards resilient infrastructure very soon. That rulemaking process is ongoing, but this is a little bit of information particularly about a problem that we are having here in the state of Texas, and that is power outages. As climate change progresses, we are having, exactly as the professor said, more of this global weirding of days where it is hotter. We are having these freak winter storms occasionally here in the state of Texas, and all of those things are putting a stress on our energy grid. Unfortunately, as you can see, these major U.S. power outages are on the increase since 2000. We now have about 2 times as many in the 2014 to 23 period compared to 2000 to 2009. Here in the state of Texas, unfortunately, we are #1 in the nation, and not in a good way. And that is that we are #1 in the nation for these major power outages. You may be familiar with several of these. We had the large winter storm several years back, I believe in 2021 now. But even since then, you may be familiar with the power outages that were in Houston just about a year and a half ago now. These are events that are not just inconvenient to Texans, they are life-threatening. Because here in the state of Texas, if it is summer and you do not have AC, if it is winter in one of these storms and you do not have heat, then that is a major problem for just about anyone. But also, there is a large number of Texans out there that also need electricity for their healthcare services. And those are unavailable whenever we have these power outages. So for the reasons of climate resiliency, we should be looking into this kind of backup power infrastructure, but we also have environmental benefits. So at the same time, while we are dealing with the impacts of climate change, we can also be looking to offset climate change. So a few reasons, just briefly here. We're increasing resiliency. It also has zero air pollution. So particularly talking about rooftop solar. Zero air pollution, there is also no water usage, and it requires no additional land use. While land use has been an issue across the United States with renewable energy, garnering pushback in local jurisdictions, that is one benefit of rooftop solar, is the land is already in use. We can actually just get more use out of it than we were before. Additionally, solar panels are incredibly recyclable, so even at end of life, we can still keep using their components. A few additional reasons, especially for critical infrastructure, but also perhaps applying to homeowners with some of these as well. The first one that I want to mention, which we also talked about in several of the other presentations today, is that we may already have battery backup systems effectively if you have an electric vehicle. Many vehicles now are shipping with vehicle-to-home technology, meaning that you can reverse the flow out of your battery and send it back into your home. This is also possible on the industrial and commercial scale with, for instance, electric school buses, which have quite large batteries. A few other reasons, as we mentioned, grid stability, that decreased water pollution and decreased air pollution. We also have that it just saves money. Solar just makes sense. That's why a lot of companies are investing in it in the state of Texas, is because it just makes the economic argument that you can also, with batteries, which both enable resiliency, but in the state of Texas, we do not have something called net metering, which is effectively where you can turn your meter backwards by sending power back to the grid. In many jurisdictions, there is the ability to get back the same amount of money that you pay for electricity whenever you send it back to your electric provider. But in the state of Texas, that will depend on who you are buying electricity from. You'll be getting a much less effective rate on that energy that you send back. But with battery power, you are able to store that energy for later, effectively being able to offset the use that you would have otherwise, for instance, at night. And lastly, which is also important for resilient infrastructure, there is no fuel involved. If you have owned a generator, you might be familiar with fuel spoilage. If you have had a car sitting in the garage for a long time or a boat, you might be familiar with the need to put stabilizers in and ensure that you are monitoring that, while there is no need to do so with batteries and solar. This is a few stats that Environment Texas compiled in Q4 2024 about the number of homes and individuals with these technologies in the state of Texas. While not all 350,000 electric vehicles in the state will have vehicle-to-home capability, a significant portion do, and many more so of those being sold today. Additionally, that 124,000 number is likely an underestimate in the state of Texas, as there are a number of folks that are not interconnected into the grid and may not show up in these numbers. With that, I'm also going to, and we've also already talked about the Texas Backup Power Package. I will also mention one thing. This rulemaking is expected to complete this year, so we will have a clear structure, but I will also let Fazil take that on a little bit more. So thank you very much, and Fazil, over to you, and we will have some Q&A at the end.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you, Ian. I also love the term global weirding. So many uses for that. And I appreciate everybody for being here and the invitation. You know, I'm from Dallas. I was born and raised here. And I think everybody has recognized that the growth here is unmatched. I think also, real quickly, I'll say that the leadership here is also unmatched. I think that the state and everybody that's working in the state on this challenging problem of improving resiliency across all levels is doing a tremendous job. PUC, Ian highlighted an example of that sort of work. I wanted to spend this time going through the presentation, really just provide education on how the technology landscape for energy affordability, accessibility, resiliency, and of course sustainability has evolved. I think we've all seen Texas has led in terms of energy generation through conventional sources and has emerged as a leader in renewable sources as well, namely wind and batteries and and other technologies as well, solar included. A lot of room to run for solar, as Ian mentioned. Similarly, when you think about facilities, and what's most important to us is critical facilities. If we can go to the next slide. Do I have a clicker? Sorry. Ian. As Ian mentioned, I think the critical facilities, when we talk about resiliency, is of the utmost important. We want to make sure that our communities have not just perhaps critical standby for their emergency life safety circuits, and not just to get people out of the building and to secure perishables and these type of things, but I think we want to make sure critical facilities can operate through a outage or through a critical situation on the grid if we have an outage. So as opposed to a dialysis clinic having to reroute patients to other locations that have greater amounts of power supply, why not enable these type of facilities to be able to operate throughout that sort of event and serve more patients instead of having to reschedule them or these type of things. So, if you take that up a notch and you think about all the different types of critical facilities across the strait, you would want and imagine that same level of full resilience, if you will, to be possible. And this program and the technologies that we have now provide easier access, lower cost access to these technologies, so we can make sure our great state, our citizens, our communities have tremendous resource accessibility during critical periods of time. So I think when most people, when I tell them I work for Generac, they think of the little box at your house that turns on when the power goes out. And, that's just the start. Like I said, the market has evolved tremendously, not just at the grid level with technologies, but here at the residential as well as the commercial industrial site level as well. So where technology maybe started with a very basic reciprocating engine to provide power during critical times of emergency, the cost of things like battery energy storage and solar, EV charging, the control systems to manage all of this is all no longer a science project. This is all very much commercially available technology that has been used broadly around the world and is very useful in a critical time that we have now. So when you think about a facility there, the box on probably y'all's left-hand side there, now we're seeing more and more customers across the nation and the state as well starting to ask us about or investigate these additional technologies such as battery energy storage and solar in addition to something like a standby engine. And we're seeing the adoption rate increase in the state of Texas, the use cases and so on. There are plenty of vendors out there that are doing this, plenty of companies out there that are helping folks. We're just one of many, but the considerations when you're looking at these type of projects are that you want to have products that are serviceable. If you have an issue, there's a network that's available to come and troubleshoot that, just as you would buy any other major piece of equipment. When you think about how these systems are evolving and you have a critical facility that's now looking at adding in solar and storage, as I mentioned earlier, what's foundational to this is that the system works without you having to think about it, without you having to check in on it. If there is any issue with it, that it's not causing a disturbance to your operation. So at the heart of these systems, as Ian mentioned with solar and storage, you're going to have a little computer that makes sure that all of this is working properly. What this is called in the industry is a microgrid controller. So this system coordinates the power which would be most beneficial to utilize at that moment. So if the solar is best to use at that moment, it's maximizing that. If the battery is best utilized in that moment because it's full and the solar's not available and the demand is peaking, then it'll automatically instruct the battery to operate. As other devices get plugged into this system, it can be future-proof, and you can add in these things as your energy journey evolves. So, some of the benefits here, as I mentioned, you want to have full ability to operate, perhaps not just partial ability to operate your facility. Community resilience centers and hubs where folks can go during a time of emergency is another example. Critical facilities that provide communications are an example as well. The list is quite long. The PUC did an analysis estimating that when they look at the term critical facilities, it's north of 30,000 facilities in the state, so of varying types. The other benefit of microgrids is the scalability. You can size these to meet your unique requirements. You can size them to give you multi-day outage protection, leaning on the solar and the battery, and for fuel efficiency benefits as well as sustainability benefits. There's a number of different ways to configure these systems. So it's really a consultative dialogue to understand, like, what are your organization's goals, and how can we bring the right sized pieces to plug in. The other piece is redundancy. So if you've got more than one vehicle in your car, like in your garage, you got two cars, and one car is down, you got the other car, right? The same is true with these systems. You've got now 2 to 3 energy producing assets. So, if you do incur an issue with one of them, fuel supply delivery disruption during an outage, or something mechanically breaks, you've got these other sources that can support you. The other notion is that the utility, your engagement with the utility, so the system can be configured as well to allow you to switch over in a more seamless fashion. There's options for these type of things. We call it ride-through. So if that's a consideration, there's things to explore there as well. So if you're looking at these projects, ask about, what is your experience, your customer experience going to be during an outage? Like, how is the system going to switch you from the utility to the microgrid mode? So as an example here, am I doing okay on time, Ian? Okay. You want to leave like 2 minutes? Or? Okay. So as an example here, on the right-hand side, this is a user interface of a 3-asset microgrid system between a generator, a solar, and a battery, and the grid as well. The grid is the plug. And this customer wanted full resiliency backup. So as I described, like, they wanted to run their entire operation if the grid is not present. They don't want to just run 10 or 20, 15%, whatever it may be. So they incorporated in this facility a small generator, a 20 kW solar array, and a 60 kW battery, as well as the additional fixins, the microgrid controller and the protective relay. Oh, how do I go back? So in this example, the system, when the utility is present, the solar and the battery are providing some energy savings, some sustainability improvements, these type of attributes. When the utility goes down, this customer sees a short outage, approximately 10 seconds, the generator comes on, and then the battery comes on, and then the solar comes on, and then the generator has the ability to turn off and allow the solar and the battery to operate. If the battery gets low and the solar can't keep up with recharging the battery, then the generator can come back on and support the recharging of the battery. So you can see, like, how this system can work together, like I said, to optimize fuel consumption, optimize resiliency, optimize sustainability, and work as a true cohesive system without, again, this being a science project and needing 10 PhDs I'm not a doctor, as you mentioned. So fortunately, I don't need a bunch of doctors to talk about this in detail anymore. Before, the saying was, you've seen one microgrid, you've seen one microgrid. That's not the case anymore. And as Ian mentioned, our great leadership has seen the need for increased resiliency at our critical facilities and the need to support them with that. So they passed legislation that's now, as Ian mentioned, in rulemaking to make these type of systems available to critical facilities throughout the state of Texas. So, things like how the program is going to work and how the incentive will be structured and who you should talk to learn more about this, those details are all forthcoming. So that was my presentation. Thank you guys so much. I hope it was educational.
All right, we have about 4 or 5 minutes for questions, and I see one right up front. Can we get a microphone over there? I'll repeat that back briefly. If there are any folks out there using AI to find rooftops in their community to lease that have high potential for solar energy, especially for electric providers looking for that, and also any jurisdictions or any individual organizations that are looking for funding opportunities or other creative ways of implementing renewables on their infrastructure.
I can start that response. So the Constellation Energy is the only one that I'm aware of that uses AI. I'm sure there are many others, but the one that I'm aware of, the case study is Constellation Energy. They're doing a really good job of utilizing AI. And I have solar, for instance, in my home, and I can sell my energy to the energy company, to the utility. So they've been really good, and that's the one example that I can think of. Yeah. As far as funding, I don't know if you both are probably more able to talk about funding opportunities.
Yeah. I'm not aware of any folks using AI for funding or other creative solutions. What about you?
I think it was specifically with regard to solar, just solar on its own. Energy efficiency.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if I have an answer off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, we also have one right there.
This question is for Fossil. I think the solar in urban settings on rooftops is brilliant, and to be able to use AI to facilitate finding more acreage, if you will, is fantastic. Though my question is, a lot of companies outside of our country are buying up prairie land and putting in miles and miles worth of solar farms and destroying our blackland prairies, which are already compromised. Is there talk about this in your industry? And if so, what's being done about it?
So Generac is not involved in what I would describe as the front of meter utility scale solar type projects that I think you're describing. I know that there's considerable scrutiny on ensuring the proper use of land and resources, and landowners are very engaged when they're approached for these type of opportunities. Beyond that, I think that I would probably refer you to the Solar Association of Texas, and there's some great folks over there that could probably answer your question.
And we have another question in the back over by the wall there.
Hi. I have a question on, all the rooftop, but all of this is driven, and a lot of this is construction-based, right? Infrastructure and construction, and it's pretty obvious, and it's been pretty obvious. We have a lot of rooftop, and we have a lot of sunlight in the state of Texas. Why is this not incorporated into codes and new building codes, and being smart about putting this in as, instead of fighting it on every, it sounds like a good idea, but we don't want to put the expense in, or we don't want to educate our contractors on that, or the developers, right? I used to work in construction, so I understand. They're not going to change unless there's a need to change, right? Or it's cheaper, kind of thing. So I'm just curious, where are the initiatives in changing that?
From the industry perspective, I think we're seeing more and more new construction taking into consideration these types of additional technologies such as solar. I think it's easier to contemplate that in a greenfield setting versus a brownfield retrofit setting. So just commercially, we're seeing that still as a consideration. I think that the program that Ian mentioned, obviously solar is a component of the project requirements, and as I mentioned, the funding and how the solar element will be designed by the PUC in that program are TBD. I think that also in Texas, power generation, ERCOT and the state of Texas, it's an open market. You can find a path to connecting the technology that you like and work with ERCOT through that. So the market design, I think, is also one where, most people that have done solar, they do it because they believe the economic incentive and the return, the sustainability attributes are there. So I think that with all the growth we're having in Texas and the momentum with energy, more of that will happen organically.
Yeah, I'll briefly also add just a touch more to that. Yes, we do also see, like you said, kind of that resistance to change, because it is hard to go and to, someone like Home Depot, for instance, Walmart, many of these corporations that have large rooftops. We would love to see more solar on those kind of warehouse style buildings in particular, because like you said, it is very ripe for that. What we've heard from folks is that often they're not used to being in the power business. First of all, that is not their business model. So getting used to that, figuring out those issues, integrating that into your business model as essentially an area where you can at least take away expenses, if not even make a profit. Additionally, needing to integrate that into construction standards. Like you said, many of those warehouse style buildings were not necessarily built with putting an additional large amount of solar on those rooftops. So that will also vary depending on the building. And yes, we would love to see at least some solar ready style city codes. We are seeing that at least with homes in many jurisdictions. But yes, there could be some possibility of adding some kind of solar ready component at least to commercial buildings. And then we had another question over here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. Thank you all for your presentations, very informative. My question is about AI for the presenter who spoke on that. Really appreciate your fair and balanced approach to it. One thing I didn't hear was about the environmental justice aspects of AI and how it's the environmental impacts of it are often distributed to already impoverished communities, right? And how, for example, data centers that use a lot of water might be built in already drought-stricken areas, as is happening here in Texas. So I'm curious about how you address that and how you factor that to your work. Thanks.
I don't think there's a ready path for that. It's something that we through our policy, through our voting, can impact some of that, right? I mean, it's not, again, it's not one individual, it's not one organization. Whether it's the question about with solar as well, like, can we drive standards and policy and voting, and like the Water Proposition 4 was passed right here in this state. So we care about water, right? And so I think collectively we have to inform the public, do the advocacy needed, and prevent those types of things happening, because environmental justice is very real, and it is happening, and we need to. But I don't think there's no like silver bullet. It's not a ready answer. I think we collectively have to inform each other and work on that, just like we worked on the water problem. I don't know if you know offhand what Proposition 4, but it's like billions of dollars being invested to fix the water problem in Texas because we've run the Ogallala aquifer dry. So there is awareness happening, and we just have to continue to press on that. I think voting's coming up, so here's our opportunity.
I just wanted to add that there's a great organization called TEPRI, Texas Energy Poverty Research Institute. And I think most of their focus is on power, but they're doing great work, and they're actually working with data centers to help them find projects and communities that could benefit from some support. So there was a microgrid project, a battery and solar project here in North Texas that was done through that consortium. It's a TEPRI. I would suggest folks look into that. They may also be looking at water. I know it's a huge topic with the state, with the legislature.
Yes. I'd also highly recommend checking TEPRI and their website for more resources on that. Also, the interim charges that are currently in the legislature. It seems like there is a lot of appetite among the Texas legislature right now for some action, especially on water usage by data centers, but also other data center issues. So recommend looking into that as it develops. Thank you so much to our panelists today for contributing their expert knowledge, and thank all of you for attending as well. I'll hand it back over to Opon.